When you wake up in the morning and look in the mirror, the reflection staring back at you is not simply the result of chance, circumstance, or luck. It is the manifestation of what you believe about yourself. Belief is not just a passing thought or a fleeting feeling. It is the foundation upon which you build your entire existence. If you truly want to surpass yourself, you must begin by recognizing that the power of self-belief is not optional. It is the bedrock. Without it, every effort crumbles under the weight of doubt. With it, however, you find a reservoir of strength that allows you to break barriers you never imagined you could overcome. The truth is, most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they've convinced themselves they can't succeed. They carry within them a story, often planted long ago by parents, teachers, peers, or even society, that whispers, "You're not enough." That whisper becomes a narrative, and that narrative becomes a prison. Belief, then, is not simply about telling yourself you can do something. It's about rewriting the narrative you've inherited. It's about breaking down the walls of that mental prison and saying, "No, I am not confined to this. I can be more." And now self-belief is not arrogance. It's not puffing yourself up with empty confidence or pretending to be something you're not. That's delusion. Real self-belief is grounded in responsibility. It's the act of saying, "I may not be there yet, but I am capable of getting there. I may not know everything, but I can learn. I may fall, but I will rise again." It is a quiet conviction, not a loud boast. It doesn't scream, it endures. It's the steady flame that continues to burn, even when storms rage around you. You might ask yourself, why is belief so powerful? Because the human mind does not operate in neutrality. If you believe you cannot, you won't even attempt with full force. You'll hold back, sabotage yourself, and fulfill your own prophecy. But if you believe you can, you engage differently. You approach challenges as opportunities, not threats. You take risks that once felt paralyzing. You build momentum, and momentum becomes transformation. Belief changes how you walk into a room, how you face hardship, how you handle loss. It shapes your posture toward life itself. Think of those who have achieved greatness in any field. The common thread is not that they were born extraordinary. It's that they refused to accept the narrative of limitation. They believed, often when no one else did, that they could be more than what others expected of them. That belief became their anchor, their compass, and their fuel. They were not superhuman. They simply dared to trust in the possibility of growth. And yet, belief alone is not enough. It must be paired with action. You can't just sit and affirm your worth without doing the work. But here's the remarkable thing. Belief makes the work possible. It creates the courage to take the first step and the resilience to keep stepping when exhaustion tempts you to stop. Belief is the seed, action is the soil, and discipline is the sunlight that allows the seed to grow into something mighty. So if you want to surpass yourself, you must guard and cultivate yourself. Belief like it is your most valuable possession, because it is. Every time you choose to believe, you are reprogramming the mind, teaching it to aim higher, to withstand more, to grow stronger. The question is not whether you are capable, the question is whether you will allow yourself to believe you are. Because the greatest tragedy is not to fail. The greatest tragedy is to never try, simply because you convinced yourself you couldn't. When you dare to believe, you give yourself permission to step into a life that expands far beyond your current limitations. And when that belief takes root, you'll realize something profound. Surpassing yourself was never about proving the world wrong. It was about proving to yourself that you were right to believe, and that, my friends, is where true transformation begins. Most people live their lives inside invisible walls they've built for themselves. These walls are comfortable. They're familiar. They give you a sense of safety because everything inside them is predictable. You know what to expect. You know what to avoid, and you know how to navigate the routines you've rehearsed for years. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Nothing remarkable ever grows in the soil of comfort. If you remain where you are simply because it feels easy, then you have already chosen mediocrity over possibility. To surpass yourself, you must be willing to step outside those walls and confront the unknown. Comfort zones whisper lies to you. They tell you, stay here, it's safe, don't risk it, don't embarrass yourself, don't fail. And for a moment it feels reassuring. But look closer, that voice isn't protecting you, it's suffocating you. The longer you stay in that safe space, the more your potential withers. Muscles unused grow weak, talents unexplored remain dormant, dreams unpursued rot into regrets. You pay for comfort with the price of your own becoming. Think about it. The times in your life when you grew the most weren't when everything was easy. They were the moments when you were stretched to your limits, when you were uncomfortable, uncertain, maybe even terrified. Growth is always preceded by discomfort. A seed has to break before it can sprout. A muscle has to tear before it can strengthen. A person has to endure struggle before they can transform. Yet most of us try to skip the breaking, skip the tearing, skip the struggle, and then wonder why nothing changes. Stepping out of your comfort zone doesn't mean recklessly throwing yourself into chaos. It means deliberately choosing challenges that stretch you just far enough that you feel resistance, but not so far that you're paralyzed. It's about aiming at a goal that scares you a little, one that demands more of you than you've ever given before. That discomfort you feel when you pursue something greater. It's not a warning sign to stop, it's proof you're on the right path. And yes, leaving comfort means you will stumble. You will be awkward at first. You will fail, perhaps publicly. You will encounter moments when you want to run back to safety and pretend you never tried. But that's the process. That's the necessary friction that shapes you into someone capable of more than you imagined. Every time you push a boundary, you redraw the limits of who you are. What once felt impossible becomes routine. What once seemed terrifying becomes normal. That is how expansion works, inch by inch, choice by choice. Look at anyone you admire. They weren't forged in comfort. They became who they are by walking straight into uncertainty and refusing to turn back. They took the risk of being uncomfortable so they could grow into people who could handle greater responsibility, greater influence, and greater impact. They accepted the price of discomfort so they could claim the reward of transformation. If you want to surpass yourself, you cannot afford to cling to safety. The life you dream of exists outside the walls you've built. You will never find it in the routines that numb you or the habits that keep you small. You have to go out there into the unfamiliar, into the territory where failure is possible but growth is certain. So do not ask for an easy road. Do not pray for comfort. Pray for courage. Pray for the strength to step beyond the narrow borders of your safety and into the wide landscape of possibility. Because when you do, you'll discover that surpassing yourself was never about staying safe. It was about daring to grow into someone far greater than the person comfort allowed you to be. Motivation is a fleeting guest. It shows up when it wants to, stays for a short while, and disappears the moment things get difficult. Everyone has felt it, that surge of energy when you're inspired by a video, a story, or an idea. You feel unstoppable for a moment. You write down goals, you promise yourself change, and you're convinced that this time will be different. But then the reality of effort arrives. The early mornings, the sore muscles, the endless repetition, the quiet grind with no applause. And suddenly, that spark you relied on vanishes. You wait for it to return, but it doesn't. That's why so many people quit. They were relying on motivation, when what they truly needed was discipline. Discipline is different. Discipline is cold, steady, unromantic. It doesn't rely on mood or inspiration. It doesn't care how you feel when the alarm goes off. Discipline says you do the work anyway. It doesn't ask for permission from your emotions, it simply commands action. That's why discipline is more powerful than motivation. It doesn't need to be fueled by excitement. It thrives in the ordinary, the mundane, even the unpleasant. And it's in those places where real growth takes root. The truth is, if you only act when you feel like it, you will never surpass yourself. Feelings are unreliable. They are fickle, easily swayed by exhaustion, by distraction, by temptation. One bad day, one discouraging comment, one restless night, and suddenly motivation is gone, but discipline cuts through all of that. Discipline is the decision you made yesterday, honored today, regardless of how you feel right now. It is the pact you make with yourself that says, I will not betray the future I want for the comfort I crave in the moment. And make no mistake, discipline is not about punishment or self-denial for the sake of suffering. It is about alignment. It is about ordering your life so that your actions serve your highest aim, not your passing impulses. It is about trading short-term gratification for long-term fulfillment. Discipline is freedom because it frees you from being enslaved to your moods. This is why so many people never cross the threshold of their potential. They wait for motivation to arrive as if it were some divine signal, some magical force that will carry them forward. But that force doesn't last. It never does. What lasts is habit. What lasts is routine. What lasts is the quiet decision repeated over and over until it becomes part of who you are. You don't brush your teeth because you're motivated. You brush them because it's what you do. Imagine if you built your ambitions into your life the same way, so ingrained that they no longer depend on how you feel. They simply are asterisk. And here's the paradox. Once you cultivate discipline, motivation often follows, not the other way around. When you act consistently, even without excitement, results begin to appear, and results spark motivation. Action generates emotion, not the other way around. People think they need to feel ready to start, but the truth is, you need to start to feel ready. Discipline carries you until motivation is reborn from the progress you've created. Surpassing yourself is not about waiting for the perfect moment when you're inspired and energized. It's about dragging yourself forward on the days when every fiber of your being says stop. It's about proving to yourself that your commitments are stronger than your moods. And when you live like that, you begin to see just how much power you actually have. So stop waiting for the lightning bolt of motivation. Stop telling yourself you'll begin when you feel like it. Begin now and keep going. Let discipline lead and let motivation trail behind. Because when discipline becomes your foundation, you won't just surpass yourself, you'll become someone unshakable, someone unstoppable, someone forged in consistency and strength. And that kind of person cannot be defeated. Setbacks are inevitable. No matter how carefully you plan, no matter how determined you are, life has a way of throwing obstacles in your path. And in those moments, most people make the same mistake. They see failure as evidence that they're not good enough, that they should stop, that the dream wasn't meant for them. They take the hit, and instead of standing taller, they shrink. But here's the reality: setbacks are not proof of inadequacy. They are the very substance of growth. If you want to surpass yourself, you must learn to treat failure not as a wall, but as fuel. Think about it. Every great story you admire, whether it's an athlete, an artist, a leader, or even your own personal heroes, none of them became who they are without stumbling. Their greatness wasn't built in spite of setbacks. It was built because of them. They failed, they fell, they broke down, and in those moments of pain, they discovered the strength to rise. That rising is what shaped them into something extraordinary. Without the setback, there would be no breakthrough. Without the loss, there would be no transformation. It's easy to celebrate success. It feels good, it's affirming, it validates your effort. But success doesn't teach you much. Comfort doesn't sharpen you. Failure does. When you fall short, you're forced to ask hard questions. Where did I go wrong? What needs to change? How can I come back stronger? Those questions are painful, but they are the keys to surpassing yourself. Avoiding setbacks is avoiding the very lessons that would make you powerful. The problem is, many people treat failure like a permanent identity. They don't say, "I failed." They say, "I am a failure." And that small difference in language becomes a chain that binds them to mediocrity. But failure is not who you are. It is something that happened. It is feedback, information, a message from reality about what works and what doesn't. And when you reinterpret failure that way, it becomes a teacher rather than an enemy. You need to understand the path to anything worthwhile will always be littered with setbacks. Not just once, but repeatedly. If you're pursuing a goal that truly matters, you will stumble again and again. And that's good. Because each time you fall, you uncover reserves of strength you didn't know you had. Each time you rise, you expand your capacity to endure. The scars you carry are not signs of weakness, they are proof that you refuse to quit. This is why those who surpass themselves don't run from setbacks. They lean into them. They recognize that pain is part of the process. They understand that resilience is forged, not given. And they use each obstacle as a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. They don't ask, "Why me?" They ask, "What can I build from this?" That shift in mindset is the difference between someone who stagnates and someone who evolves. So the next time you stumble, don't waste energy cursing the ground you fell on. Pick yourself up, examine the wound, learn what it has to teach you, and walk forward stronger. Refuse to see the setback as the end of your story. See it as the necessary chapter before the triumph. Because surpassing yourself is not about walking a path free of obstacles. It's about walking a path where every obstacle becomes fuel, every failure becomes wisdom, and every setback becomes the very thing that propels you forward. And when you finally rise to the next version of yourself, you'll look back and realize it was the falls, not the victories, that shaped your greatness. Who you are today is not who you must remain tomorrow. Too often, people make the mistake of believing their identity is fixed, carved into stone, unchangeable. They cling to old roles, old labels, old versions of themselves, as though these definitions are permanent truths. But they are not. They are stories you've told yourself, stories others may have told about you, and stories you've accepted without question. And if you want to surpass yourself, you must learn the art of continuous reinvention. Life is not static. It is dynamic, fluid, constantly shifting. The world around you changes, challenges evolve, opportunities appear and vanish, and you are not immune to that movement. If you insist on staying the same, you risk becoming outdated in your own life. Reinvention is not betrayal of who you've been. It is an act of loyalty to who you are becoming. It's about saying, the person I was yesterday served a purpose, but I refuse to let yesterday define tomorrow. The truth is, many people hold on to their past because it's familiar. Even if it's painful, even if it limits them, it's something they know. Change is frightening because it requires stepping into an unknown identity. It asks you to let go of certainty and embrace possibility, and that's not easy, but stagnation comes at a far greater cost. To cling to an old version of yourself is to deny the growth waiting inside you. It is to sacrifice your future on the altar of your past. Reinvention doesn't mean erasing who you are. It means refining, evolving, elevating. It means recognizing when certain habits, mindsets, or environments no longer serve your highest aim, and having the courage to shed them. Like a snake shedding its skin, you must allow old identities to fall away so new life can emerge. Reinvention requires honesty. You must look at yourself and ask, am I truly living in alignment with who I want to be? And if the answer is no, you must have the courage to change. This process is not a one-time event. It is ongoing. Reinvention is not something you do once in your 20s or 30s and then coast on forever. It's something you must return to again and again as life unfolds. The challenges of today are not the challenges of yesterday, and the skills that carried you this far may not be the skills that will carry you further. If you cling too tightly to who you were, you will prevent yourself from becoming who you need to be. And here's the beauty of it. Every time you reinvent yourself, you expand the boundaries of what you thought possible. You surprise yourself. You discover that your potential was never fixed, that your story was never finished, that your identity was never a prison. You are free to grow, to reshape, to create, and that freedom is the essence of surpassing yourself. But it will not happen by accident. Reinvention requires intention. It requires you to ask difficult questions, to challenge old patterns, to step into unfamiliar territory. It means being willing to walk away from parts of your life that feel safe but small. It means allowing discomfort, uncertainty, and even fear to accompany you on the path forward. Because only in that discomfort does the next version of you take shape. So do not become complacent. Do not cling to who you were at the expense of who you could become. Instead, treat your life as a continual unfolding, a work of art forever in progress. Reinvent again and again, not because you were broken, but because you were made for growth. And in that relentless commitment to becoming more, you'll find the truth. Surpassing yourself is not about holding on to a single identity. It is about daring to evolve into the limitless possibilities of who you can be. When people talk about goals, they often think in terms of external achievements. Money, status, recognition, possessions. And while those things can hold value, they are not the ultimate aim. The true goal, the one that carries lasting meaning, is becoming the person capable of living with integrity, strength, and purpose. Your future self is the goal, not a car, not a house, not applause from strangers, but the person you could be if you lived up to your highest potential. That is the standard you must measure yourself against. The danger most people fall into is comparison. They look sideways at others, measuring their worth against peers, neighbors, or celebrities. But that is a shallow game. There will always be someone richer, someone more talented, someone younger or better looking. If you define your worth by comparison, you will forever chase a moving target. The only true measure is who you were yesterday versus who you are today, and whether the person you're becoming tomorrow is stronger, wiser, and more capable. Your future self is already waiting for you. Imagine that person, disciplined, resilient, courageous, compassionate, living a life of meaning. That version of you is not some fantasy, it is a possibility, but possibilities don't just materialize. They require sacrifice. They demand responsibility. They insist that you act today in ways your future self will thank you for, rather than curse you for. Every choice you make is a vote for who you're becoming. You either cast votes for growth, or you cast votes for decay. This is why the little things matter. Waking up on time, keeping promises to yourself, saying no to distractions, choosing effort over ease. These daily acts may seem small, but they compound into the architecture of your future. Who you will be is being built in the hidden moments, when no one is watching, when excuses whisper in your ear, when comfort tempts you back into mediocrity. Your future self is forged in those quiet battles, but here's what makes it powerful. When you keep your eyes fixed on that future version of yourself, setbacks lose their power to define you. You no longer crumble at failure because you know it's part of the journey. You no longer get seduced by short, short-term comfort because you've trained your vision on something greater. You see beyond the moment, and that sight pulls you forward. It's not about denying yourself pleasure. It's about delaying it for the sake of something infinitely more meaningful. Think of it like this. You are in a constant dialogue with your future self. That person is watching, waiting, depending on the choices you make today. When you betray your discipline, when you cave to comfort, you are abandoning them. But when you act with strength, when you rise after setbacks, when you refuse to stagnate, you are walking toward them step by step. And one day you will meet them. One day you will stand face to face with the person you've become, and you will know whether you honored or betrayed the potential that was given to you. That is the ultimate accountability, not to society, not to your critics, not even to your friends or family. The greatest accountability is to the person you could have been, and that truth should both humble and inspire you, because it means the power is in your hands. Every day, every hour, every choice, you are shaping that destiny. So live in such a way that your future self will look back at you with gratitude, not regret. Let every decision be a step toward the person you were meant to become. Because surpassing yourself is not about proving anything to the world. It is about becoming the living embodiment of your highest possibility. And there is no greater victory than that. When you step back and look at the entire journey we've explored, a single truth becomes clear. Surpassing yourself is not a single act, but a lifelong commitment. It begins with belief, the conviction that you are capable of more than the voice of doubt insists. It deepens when you break free from the comfort zones that keep you small and discover the growth hidden in discomfort. It is sustained by discipline, the unwavering force that carries you forward when motivation fades. It is refined through setbacks, which cease to be stumbling blocks and instead become fuel for resilience and wisdom. It is expanded through continuous reinvention, the courage to shed the skin of the past so you can grow into the future. And ultimately, it is anchored in the vision of your future self, the highest version of you waiting for you to rise to the challenge. This path is not easy, nor should it be. The difficulty is what makes it meaningful. To surpass yourself is to honor your potential, to shoulder responsibility, to transform pain into purpose, and to live with the kind of integrity that cannot be shaken. It is not about competing with others, but about becoming a little stronger, a little wiser, a little braver than you were yesterday. So let this be the charge you carry forward. Do not settle for the life that is comfortable, safe, or small. Step into the life that demands more of you because it is there, on the edge of your fears, beyond the pull of your excuses, and through the trials of persistence that your true strength will be revealed. Surpass yourself, and you will discover that the greatest victory is not found in the world outside, but in the person you become within.